Wish you were one of those influencers with raving fans who binge on your every word, consume all your content, buy everything you have to sell, and demand even more? Then stay tuned while Authority Magazine columnist and BuzzFeed contributor Tracy Hazard shares strategies, tips, and tactics from top videocasters, podcasters, authors, and social influencers on creating that bingeable factor. Now, let's join Tracy as she explores how to rise above all the digital noise with the binge factor.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Binge Factor. I'm Tracy Hazard, and I have a client today, but it was kind of funny because she came across and got booked on my show before she became a client. And she says to me as I'm doing some final booking, and I actually had to move her appointment, that she's a client. And I was like, well, how did I not know this? And so sometimes our businesses start to get so big that we don't even realize all the people who come across our desk and who we're helping. So we will try not to discuss that today because I like to bring you people who I don't really have a lot of exposure with. And that's the great thing about it, is that it was my first chance to take a look at Lisa's show. And I have Lisa Pezik on the show, by the way. And her show is called The Lisa Pezik Show. So I get to take a listen, take a look. This is a great insight. I don't get to do this with every one of my clients. And so for me, this was actually a big treat because I know that she's going to listen to my advice where lots of them don't. Lots of you don't. I will say that, and that's okay. You take the diamonds, take the things that will work for you, but she chose to work with us, which meant that she really actually did want my input. So here we are. I get to not only talk about her show, rave about some of the great things that she's doing that you can model as well, but I also get to give her some pieces of advice to help her move her show to the next level. So if you stay tuned afterwards, I will give you a couple of tips as well of some things that you can try. So Lisa Pezik is a #1 international Amazon bestselling author. She's a business strategist, a Thrive Global author, worldwide speaker, and a nurse who takes your business online with excellence. Her strategies and systems help customers connect and become clients fast. She studied under the world's best, such as Brendan Burchard, Bo Eason, and Roger Love. And audience say that Lisa has fiery inspiration, contagious energy, and to-the-point strategies. Lisa and her husband, Eric, and their team specialize in done-for-you services with branding, content, creation, funnels, and websites with their agency, Infinite Design House. They also offer SEO, blog, social media, and lead generation with their Sales Booster Sales Booster program. They do all the things you don't know how to do or don't want to do in the online space. So I'm so glad to welcome Lisa Pezik of The Lisa Pezik Show. Lisa, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
You know, you've got well over 160 episodes. You've been doing this a while. You have a marketing business. How do you find the time? Because this is one of the things, you and I are done for you people. How do we find the time? How do you find the time to keep going with your podcast?
Well, I think the #1 thing is I genuinely love it. It is my absolute favorite way to share information and connect with people and have amazing guests on. So I love it, first off. And second off, I find I have to schedule it. If it's not in my planner and it's not scheduled, something else will fill that time. So I block it off every Monday to film my episodes at a certain time. And every week, that's just how it gets done. It's an important piece for me. It brings so much into my business and my life that it's just always on the calendar to do. It's another one of my to-dos that I love.
So for those of you who haven't listened to her show yet, the Lisa Pezik Show has a lot of solos, right? That's you're really giving advice out there. So you're making an appointment and keeping it with yourself. So that level of accountability with yourself is really important.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a rehearsal sometimes for me. In the stage that we're in right now, I'm not able to be speaking on stages, but I am speaking online and summits and those sorts of things. And a lot of times I'll test out my stories. I'll test out my material just to feel how it comes out of my own mouth. And then when other people will say to me, oh my gosh, I love that story, that really resonated, or that one tip you gave me changed my whole thought about something, then I know, ooh, okay, I need to use that at a later date because that really resonated with someone.
I love that. We're like testing out material like comedians.
Exactly. Oh, it didn't go so good. Oh, it went better than I thought. Awesome.
I got laughs. I got response.
Exactly.
I love that idea, that concept of it. Well, what made you start the show?
I was in a brand building course with fellow peers, and I was really digging into just who I was as a human being and what my purpose was and what I wanted to do in this world. And once it clicked for me, it was all about not giving up, blazing your own path, almost that underdog kind of story when everything's against you to be able to do what you want to do, but you don't quit and you find a way to make it work. And a fellow peer who was already doing podcasting services, setting them up for people, she said, "You need a podcast." And I'm like, okay. And she's like, "No, you need a podcast." And I thought, okay, but I have no idea. Like, I would love to have a podcast, but I thought this podcast was like roll out the red carpet and like the celebrities speak on these things. And for me, I just felt this like, what do I don't know if I'm afraid to put that out there to everyone. And she said, "No, your message is too big, or it's so big that it has to be out there." And she said, I want to trial out setting up the process for people. Would you be willing to get on and be my guinea pig? And we'll do it together. And at the end of the day, you'll have your podcast up and going. And I thought, okay,
we've had a lot of people who came through that model of where they went on. I mean, in fact, that's where the Tim Ferriss show came from. He went on somebody else's show, did like 6 episodes and said, "I really like this," and decided to spin it off and do his own show. Yeah. So it's a great model to sort of test that out and have that process of working with someone else and then saying, "Yeah, this is right for me."
Yeah, so it was up. By the end of that day, it was, ready to go, and I just never looked back and started filming episodes, and off we went. And I didn't know that I was going to love it so much until I really got in and really started doing it. I love it.
Well, that makes a lot of sense as to why you've kept going for so long. Now, what has it done for your business?
Oh my goodness. So many things. The best feeling is when someone gets on a call with me because they want to hire us, they want to hire our company, or they want to hire me, and they say, "I feel like I already know everything about you. I know everything about how you run your business. I know how you treat your clients. I know what's important to you. I know what you're going to do for me. I know your family. I feel like I'm your friend and I know all these things about you. I really want to hire you. Will you work with me?" And I think they're like, "I binged the last, 6 episodes," or "I listened, the last 3 weeks I've been listening to your podcast." And it's the easiest sell, or it's not even selling. It's the easiest way, right? When people are already coming saying, "I want to work with you." And it's like the podcast does the work for me. And I don't even get on to sell on a podcast. I get on just to do that, to share what's working for me, to share aha moments. And that's what gets people to work with me, because I'm generous. They see the generosity of what I want to give, and that attracts people to want to come and work with us. So it's been a huge filler in our business. And to get the right clients, because if they take that much time to listen and digest everything, I know they have a work ethic. I know they're in it. I know it matters to them. And to me, it tells me they're a great client that I want to work with.
That generous giving. I love that. Did you don't have your husband on? He's your partner in the business, but you don't have him on that often. How come?
Sometimes he will get on if I beg and plead. He really likes to be behind the scenes. But when he gets on, my audience loves it. They love the dynamic between us. If you haven't noticed, I'm very high energy. He's so quiet.
Have you heard my show with my husband? Because I think that we have I don't know. We must have like the symbiotic relationship between our two couplehoods, because it's the same, right?
Yeah. So he's really reluctant to get on, but when he does, they love it, and it's great. And he's starting to come out a little bit more, come out of his shell. He always says I don't let him get a word in edgewise, so I'm getting better at shutting up per se and letting him get that word in edgewise. But yeah, that's why he prefers to be more supportive and behind the scenes. But he's one of those guys that doesn't say much, but when he does say something, it's very profound and very amazing. So my listeners really...
So you got to have him on to talk about those important subjects, right? Absolutely. I love it. I'm just going to ask this because this is a question I get all the time. So my audience is probably going to sit there and go, Tracy, why did you ask that? How is it to work with your husband?
It is awesome. We are one of those couples that loves to do everything together. We love parenting. We have a 6-year-old. We love parenting our little guy together, obviously, growing our business, traveling, doing all the things that we love to do. And it didn't come together like that right away. So I was taking clients and coaching and working on video coaching and story coaching and content coaching while he was looking after the tech side and the marketing side and the design and the coding. And we started out actually working very separate. And it wasn't until we were at a mastermind event and we were debriefing later in the day and we were sitting down having a craft beer at the restaurant together, talking about our business and our life. And we said we want to lead from service. And what is the course and the path that the entrepreneur or the business owner takes? And we're like, okay, first they need me. They need content. They need video. They need something to sell. They need to connect with people. Then they get stuck on the technology and they don't know how to bring it to life. And we literally looked at each other and went, oh my gosh, why are we not doing this together in our business?
Because they match up.
Right? So it's so funny how sometimes the answer and the solution can be right in front of your nose and you don't see it. And literally we had to get out of our day-to-day environment, get in with our mentor, have this session, and then have the time to sit and really talk about what we want together. It was like a really intimate conversation, and that's where our whole business was born. And it's great because we're a really good team in the sense that we communicate really well with each other. We complement each other in our strengths. We never try to one-up each other. It's just we really work and partner really well together. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
I do too. And I think that came across in the episode that I heard you two on. And that's why I wanted everybody to hear that. Yeah. So, this is something that I wanted everyone to hear today is that you weave your personal life into your episodes in an interesting way. It's not this is all about me. This is all about my story, which you would kind of think by the name of your show that the show is about you, but it's actually really not. It comes through. There's some interesting little anecdotes and stories and day to day creeps in and you hear, little bits about your son and, stuff like that we can all relate to. And that relatability is really important. It's not your binge factor, however. So I'm not revealing that, but it is something important. And I think a lot of podcasters out there struggle with how much do I bring in my personal and how much and how little, how much am I this authority and I'm giving these lectures and I'm giving these, topics and conversations and I'm keeping the personal separated. But you do it really nicely and weave it through. Is that just authentically you? Or did you do that on purpose?
I believe that we do business with people, whether even if it is a big brand. We want to know the company story. We want to know the why. We want to know what makes that person or that company tick. And I think that's that humanness piece that we forget. That we all have struggles. We all have successes. We all have wins. We all hit roadblocks and barriers. And the more that you can share that and bring people along in the journey, the more people can connect to you. And I always feel like a story is what opens people's ears. Because sometimes when you're the authority and you're successful and you have what someone wants or you've accomplished something, they see you as us versus them, or they see you up on this mountain and they feel like they're at the bottom and they're never going to get there. When you share those vulnerable stories or those ahas that you have, you're at the bottom of that mountain. Maybe you're only 1 or 2 steps ahead, lending out your hand, saying, I will take you to the top with me. I will take you where you want to go. So I feel like teaching falls flat if you don't have a story that gets their ears open and their hearts activated and getting them feeling something so they want to take that journey with you. So story is just weaved into everything, because I feel like that's what we do when we're at weddings or having a glass of wine with our girlfriends or sitting around a campfire. You know, that's what we do. We tell story. That's what
right. And stories don't have to be this gigantic why and this big story. There's sometimes these little anecdotes about the crazy stuff our kid did today, right? And that helps everyone relate. And so I think you do that really well in your show, Lisa. And I think that's part of its success. It's not its only success. But let's talk about your binge factor. What do you think? Did you know you had binge listeners? And did you ever think about that beforehand?
No, so I didn't until people started saying to me, I can't stop listening. I love these episodes. I couldn't wait for the next one. Or like I said, those sales calls, or I've listened the last 3-4 weeks or the last 20 episodes. I didn't know that. And I always thought it was because, yes, the story, but then I like to give people steps. Think about this, journal about this, go and change this, have you looked at this, reach out to this person. Because I feel like it can also always go the other way. You can give people a lot of motivational stories and hype them up and make them feel something, but then when they actually put their butt in the seat and they have to go and do the hard thing, if they don't know what step to take, they're not going to go and do it. So I always like to marry a story with actionable steps. And I do think I bring a certain kind of energy that is contagious. A lot of people say, if I'm having a bad day, you know, or somebody ticked me off, or I'm just feeling stuck, just getting a dose of your energy puts me in the right direction. So I think it's just, I love life. I love teaching and serving. I love speaking. And I think people feel that love, you know, through the screen and through, you know, through wherever they're listening.
In their headphones, right?
Their headphones, right? They feel it. They feel that energy and that love.
Well, you know, these things are true. So you have great energy on your show. You have great content, actionable content, things that they can take action from. And these are important, and they're great models for how to create a great podcast. So you've got a lot of that going on. But the ultimate binge factor you have that sets you apart from others, that really creates that, I'm going to call that model of a successful podcast that can lead to binge listeners who become clients, right? Because in that way, that's the model of your show. It's a lead generator for prospects, really good prospects to come through. And that is that you've created a trust factor through your generosity and benevolence. We talked about that a little bit earlier. You were talking about that. So your generosity of giving content, giving action items, giving stories, giving of your time on the show is demonstrating to me that you care about my success, and I don't even know you yet. Mm-hmm. So when we look at that model of it, you've overcome the number one problem people have with sales process, right? I'm not sure if you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And so that generosity, integrity, you're building a high level of trust quickly. Mm-hmm. That's what you've done with your show, Lisa. And that truly is the reason people keep listening, but then reach out to you and decide to sign up with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful to know that you have a place that you can share and you really can impact people and get in front of people. And it's that little ripple effect that really is everything. And I love it. Yeah.
I think you're on a path to keep going. 500 episodes in your future here. So good luck. I know it seems daunting, but I think you could do it.
I'm on it every week. I'll be there.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's touch base with some of these difficulty things that happen. So when you were launching your show, you had some help here, but what did you find the most difficult thing or the most stressful thing for you?
I just kind of jumped first and figured it out later. So it was kind of that casual, you should have a podcast, I'll help you set one up, will you be my guinea pig, let's do it. And then it was like, boom, it was there, it was live. And I'm such an action taker that I'm like, okay, well, if it's there, then I better go do something with it. So I was shooting all these episodes, and I was probably about 30 or 40 episodes in. And someone said to me, Lisa, your content is fantastic. It's so good, but your audio sucks. What microphone are you using? And I was like, I'm supposed to be using a microphone? Oh, okay. No microphone. Then I was, people were like, wow, your sound quality, another 20, 30 episodes in, your sound quality is fantastic. But I don't really know, you don't have an intro or an outro. Have you heard some of the other intro outros? And I'm like, no. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to have one of those. Okay. So went and found, got an intro and outro, started repurposing the content and putting it on YouTube, putting the video on YouTube. And someone said, wow, your setup is great, but your lighting kind of sucks. What are you using for lighting? And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be using lighting? So all these things, I didn't really research how to be really how to look good and sound good. I was always just about the content. I was like, if I put out good content, people will come. And I was naive. I lived in a little podcasting bubble. I didn't know about all the other ways that up the production quality.
Well, you should be so grateful people reached out and said something to you because, it allowed you to pivot and to keep moving forward and to keep improving your show, which podcast listeners are so forgiving. That's the wonderful part about them.
And it's so nice, even with, we were talking earlier, I just changed my graphic. And I had 10 people reach out to me and they're like, oh, I love your new cover graphic. They're like, it looks amazing. And I'm like, okay, people are paying, that was quick. I'm like, people are paying attention. Right. But yeah, people were not shy to help me. And I think that's the thing. When you have a message and you have a mission and you take action, people they want to support it. They're willing, they're generous. That word that keeps coming up. They're willing to say, hey, get a Yeti mic, get a ring light, get an intro, outro, go talk to Tracy, go talk to people that can help you, right? People are generous to help, which is great. So
that's so wonderful. That's one of my favorite parts about the podcasting community is how generous they are back. They want to give back. And that's a wonderful thing. Well, let's talk about your 5 things. So we want to hear some of your best ways because you're a digital marketer. You've got some skills here behind this. So I'm so curious to learn from you, and so are my listeners. So what are some of the best ways you found? And you don't have guests very often. So we're not going to talk about it from guests. So what is your best way to get great topics?
I like to keep a pulse on kind of what's going on in the world and where people are at, and I'll take a spin on, what's going on in the world, what's going on in the country, obviously coronavirus and the pandemic and the election, and not diving into talking about politics or talking about giving medical advice, but how are you feeling? How is this impacting your headspace day to day? Really putting myself back in that person's shoes where I was a decade ago when I knew nothing, knew no one, but had this massive fire inside me to make change in the world. So I really put myself back in that beginner, newbie, and whether that's new in business or a new level that you want to scale to or new doors that you want to have open, you might already be super successful, but you want to now go in this new direction, or you want to go and do something bigger, and you're like, oh my God, where do I start? So I always start with taking a pulse of what's going on in the world, and then what's going on in that person's head in the day to day. And then I think the second thing is what's important to me. I never asked myself that question in the beginning. I thought, okay, well, I'm in marketing. I should be talking about social media. I should be talking about webinars. I had this laundry list of what I felt I should be talking about. And I got to a point where I was sharing it and it was going over well. But then I kind of started asking, what is important to me? What message do I want to share this week? Even if I had it slotted in that I was going to talk about social media, maybe I wanted to talk about something completely different because it was on my heart and it was the message that I wanted to share, and it was something that, happened huge for me. So I think we forget to ask that question, what do I want? What's important to me? And when I started doing that, people started coming back to me and saying, that was an amazing episode. You were different. I felt something different from you. And I said, yeah, because I really wanted to talk about that. That was really on my heart. It
was really important to me.
It was really important to me. And I think we do get in that service mindset and be in their head and give, but it also is an outlet for us to share our creative juices and our aha moments and things that matter to us. So again, back to that, you are a part of your podcast. Don't take you out of it. Share what's on your heart. Share what's important to you. So I always ask myself that question, is what I'm sharing this week, is that in alignment with, the message that's really important or pressing for me right now? So that's another way that I pull good content. And then I think the last thing is, another thing is I'm a big nerd in like learning. Like I'm always tuning into summits and reading personal development books and watching at what, top people in our industry are doing. I'm in a few masterminds where I have, meetings and things, and I'm always taking a spin on what was taught to me, how I'm implementing it, and sharing it. So even if people aren't paying to invest in high-level masterminds, or I think my audience knows that I do, and they can almost get that insider, like pull back the curtain.
To get some insights from her.
Right. Like, she went to Brendan Burchard's, event, or she's with Bo Eason. I wonder what he was teaching. I'll share, how I'm spinning it. Obviously, I'm very cognizant of not sharing their intellectual property, but this was a big aha I got from this teaching. Here's how I'm going to implement that. Here's what I'm doing differently in my business and my life, kind of thing. So I'm always staying relevant and staying current with what's going on in our industry. And I think you have to do that. You have to stay current in the industry that you're in, because things are changing so quickly right before our eyes.
I love that. Now, what about increasing listeners? How are you increasing listeners?
I share it everywhere. So my podcast, the audio goes to iTunes and all the platforms. My video goes to YouTube. It gets repurposed in my weekly newsletter. It gets shared. The audiograms and the graphics and all of that get shared on social media. If I have a really great guest that just knocks it out of the park, which most of them do, they're amazing. A lot of times I'll even do a throwback episode where I'll reshare something that was really great. So the podcast, I have it on my LinkedIn. Like I literally put it everywhere that I can and tell people that I do it. And anybody new that I meet that I think is a great person, I offer to have them on the podcast, and then they'll share it with their networks. So it's like that everybody that 6th degree of separation and everybody knows everybody kind of thing. It's that I talk about it everywhere I go. I have great people on and they share it everywhere they go. And it's really, at first it was kind of like, oh, the podcast is like just this thing that I do, and I didn't really feel like it was this noteworthy thing. And now I'm like, hey, I have a podcast and you should listen to it. I tell everyone about it. It's like my go-to.
It's the number one thing that I always say to my clients when I hear them out in the, like, sometimes I'll be at an event or a virtual event and they'll be speaking and I'll be typing into the chat, you forgot to tell people about your podcast. Here's the name of the show and here's the link. I'm like, how do you forget to do that? Because it's such an important increasing listener builder that you need it.
And another thing in my business is I get a lot of people that ask if they can pick my brain. And I always kindly decline and say, my brain's expensive. I have a lot of wealth of knowledge, and I can guarantee you, obviously you can book a strategy call with me, we can get on, and if they say, no, I'm not at that level yet, I'll say, go and listen to my podcast, because I can guarantee you that the answer to your question is most likely in one of those episodes. Or if they say to me, my question was about sales, I'll be like, hey, go listen to episode, 142 or whatever, where I talked about sales training, or I had a guest. I use it as, again, that generosity. Even if they're not going to invest with me, or they're not ready, or they're not a right fit, I can still answer their question. It can still be found somewhere in my podcast, or I can direct them directly to an episode where they still get the answers that they need, even if they're not investing. And most times, they listen, they get their answer, and then they come back around because they hear the episode, and then they want to work with us. So, yeah, it's great.
Well, now, how do you produce like a pro? And And I'm going to say this, I like to ask you about it from the pre-production side of things, right? Not the post-production, because that's all handled for you. So, you're not in dealing with that as much. So how do you continue to make it a professional show?
I'm really intentional about the structure, and you would never know that because the show sounds very flowy, whether it's my own self speaking or whether it's I have a guest on. Now, if I have a guest, we don't structure it, but I have been able to flow it through story teaching, or that's how I always open with what I'm talking about, why it's important, why they should even care. Because sometimes people are drive-by podcast listeners, right? They'll tune in for the first 20, 30 seconds or first 5 minutes and decide whether they want to stay or not. So I always hit them with, I cut right to the chase. I always hit them with, like, here's what we're talking about, here's why it's important, here's why it matters, here's what it's going to change in your business and your life. Then I hit them with a good story. And I'm really intentional about that story that I tell. And the same, kind of cutting to the chase. Because sometimes with storytelling, you can hear people go on and on and on and on and on and on for 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
So I'm really intentional about a to-the-point, really impactful story. And then I dive into the teaching. And then I always go over some sort of objection. Because I find that people, they know why it matters, they hear this great story, they know the teaching, they know what they have to go do, but then they go, yeah, but I can't. Or, oh, well, that'll work for you, Tracy, because you can, da-da-da-da-da-da, but I can't. Right?
So I call those the but Tracy moments. So like in my show, I invariably will hit this point I go, I know you're sitting back and you're saying, but Tracy, I can't do this because, or but Tracy, this won't work for me. And that's what I actually say that. So that's the key factor.
Yeah, it's again, and what that really is another opportunity to teach. Which is great. Another opportunity to be generous. Another opportunity to overcome that objection. Another opportunity to tell a story if you've got one where you were in their shoes and you had that same thought or roadblock arise. So it's another opportunity to develop that trust. And then I always like to end it with motivation. Just so many times gratitude and motivation. We really love when people say to us, like, you did a really good job today, or thank you for doing that for me. So I always end with thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Each and every one of you, I'm so thankful for that so many people you can listen to and so many places you can be. Thank you for still being here with me. So always just that gratitude. And then everything I said today, you can do it. You can do it because, and this is why I know why. And a little bit of that, somebody who's literally nudging you up that hill, sometimes we need just that push or that nudge to say, I believe in you. I believe that you can do this. So I always end with that gratitude and that celebration and that motivation of, like, I got you. Like, and if you're not there yet, keep coming back. Keep listening. Keep tuning in. I got you. I'll be here every Monday in this seat doing this thing, keep coming back. So just that believing in people and saying thank you to people, I think goes a really long way.
So all of you listening out there, you see why I made her talk about that pre-production side, because her structure is important. It does come through in the professionalness of the show because it is consistent. It's a consistent way in which she has every single episode structured, but it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel constrained by it. Let's say it. That's the best way to do it. So this is why you're going to want to listen to the show, right? You're going to want to check out the Lisa Pezik show. So Lisa, encouraging engagement. So you said you get people who comment back to you, but how do you encourage that?
In where? Like in social media or just about the podcast?
In social media, with your clients, in the community, whoever you are getting to listen to the show.
Yeah, I'll always ask them to, actually throughout it, I'll say, like, is it, if this is resonating with you, let me know. If you're going to do something different, let me know. If something really, this has been the hardest thing for me that I've struggled with when I've been here. What's been the hardest thing for you? Tell me. Sometimes I joke and I say, I'm just going to keep coming on and talking about what I want to talk about unless you tell me differently. At this podcast, all of my content that I put out, I always say is moldable and flexible. If someone comes to me and they're like, I'm really stuck on this, or it's a theme that I constantly hear, I'll do a podcast on it. If it's something with my clients, my current clients that pay us, I'll say, hey, I had 5 meetings this week and this same thing came up in every single client. This is a theme that I'm hearing. Here's how we overcome this. So I let people know that I'm always listening, and they can always email me or comment or tell me whether it's resonating or not, whether they have a question or not, whether they did something different or not. So
I love this, Lisa. It's like, let me know tactic.
Yeah, like sometimes we don't get the answers because we never ask, right? We have to ask, and we have to, when someone does give you that feedback, talk about it. Say, hey, Jane had this great question. Deanne asked me this thing. So-and-so posted on this. When they hear, oh my God, she actually listened and she made a whole episode about my question, or, she answered back, then they know that encourages people to keep sharing and keep talking and keep that engagement going.
Wonderful. Well, the last one of our tips are the best ways to monetize your show. And, sometimes this may be just how do you look at it as a return on investment for your time, not necessarily making ad dollars on your show or anything like that, because your show's not like that. But so how do you look at that? How do you look at that from a return on investment and monetization strategy?
Yeah, I'm in it for the long haul. I play the long game. And I know that, again, it's that piece that I can direct people to get those quick wins and to learn all about who I am as a person. And I know that if they tune in and they listen, I know that they will come around, or even if it's not them, I've had so many referrals, people saying, hey, I listened to Lisa's podcast, she can help you. So many times people have been referred to me because someone has listened there. It's not for me. I don't need your services, but my friend Joe does. I told him to listen to your podcast and come talk to you. So
people pay it forward.
They do. They pay it forward. And it's either knowing that they're going to binge it and come around. The referrals come from it. I think it also shows that you follow through with what you say you're going to do. And you're walking the walk, and you're committed to something. And when you're committed to it, other people will be committed to their part, and they know you're not going to bail on them, and they know that that they trust you because you're there doing the hard thing with them. I mean, there are days where I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about today? Okay, I have this on the list, but I don't know if I want to talk about that. What am I going to, talk to? Or there's days where my 6-year-old has a nightmare and has us up, in the middle of the night or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
I'm in a zombie podcast today.
I have a zombie podcast and my 12 cups of coffee today, but I don't disappear. They see that every week the podcast comes out. And the one time I remember I had I wasn't feeling that good. And I was like, I'm sorry guys, if you hear me cough or have a little bit of a sniffle, I'm actually not feeling so good, but I'm here and I really want to spread this message to you. So I don't ever try to be something I'm not. I'm always just authentically showing up in this space, or I'll share with them. I'll be like, I am going on 3 hours of sleep because my little man, had a nightmare. I'll share. I'm a human being, right? I'll share what's going on in my life, and that lets people let down their guard about the things in business that we worry about. Am I going to make my return on investment? That's a lot of money. Are people going to laugh at me? Are they going to think my idea is stupid? What if it bombs? What if my launch fails? What if no one buys my stuff? What if I'm not good enough? What if someone criticizes me? All those demons that we worry about. When we share the realness of who we are and we let down our guard, it lets them let down their guard. And then you can really get somewhere when you're creating and working together. So it builds a lot of trust. And I know that trust and generosity always comes around in one way or another.
That's right. They lead to that monetization flow without you having to think about it along that service line, right? That benevolent service line. So that's absolutely why your show is working, Lisa. And I'm so glad that you pointed that out to everyone here. The last thing I want to talk about before we go here is that, you've got a done for you service. You've got a company that has all of these comprehensive things that you do. Tell us a little bit about that, but also tell us why done for you has been so important to you in your business here.
I believe that people are at a real decision fatigue. They're tired of learning. We want to do. We don't want to spend a year learning about how to create a course or how to create a membership or how to get a website up or how to have a funnel. We want to have it done and out and do. And I think a lot of times, one of two things. Either the ego gets in the way and we're like, well, I can do it and I'm not going to pay someone else to do it because I'm capable.
We can do it, but should we?
Exactly. It has nothing to do with your capability. Of course you are smart and resourceful, and if you sat on with Kajabi help or, whoever the provider's help is, in a day you could probably figure it out. But that's a day that you weren't staying in your lane doing the things that only you can do in business. Doing the things that bring money into your business, doing the things that bring impact into your business, doing the things that light you up and the things that you genuinely want to do. So done for you allows you to stay in your lane. It allows you to let go of your ego. It gives you time to connect with people, to take a day off if you need to and rest and recover, which entrepreneurs don't know how to do, right? That was me. I came from that. If I wasn't working, I was afraid I wasn't making money. If I wasn't doing, I was afraid the business was going to stall and die. And I would burn myself out all the time because I was doing everything. I couldn't relinquish control. And I had this mentality that if I did it would all be okay. And if I trusted other people, it would all fall apart. And that's not true. When you find a done-for-you service that is prided on excellence and communication as we are, and really treats your business the way our business is, it's an extension of you. We are co-creating together. You can trust, and you can breathe, and you can sleep, and you can let go. And you can do the things that you love to do, which for most people that is talking, speaking, coaching, connecting, networking. We want to be around people. And when you're stuck writing email copy and linking things or it takes longer sometimes for people. They're like, I have all these ideas in my head. I just don't know how to actually get it on paper and mold it and morph it into something that's sellable, into something that works. And a lot of times that's the curse of the creator, is they have so many ideas, they want to create so many things and go in so many different directions, but they never actually get there. So for me, I really help people rein it in on their strengths, on getting that sellable product. And then we take them through every step, from the creation to the design to all the technology. We will teach them if they want to know, but most people are like, dear God, I don't even want to know anything about any of that. Like, just
do it, please.
I don't care, right? It's like, I'd rather do something else. And
it's so funny, but in my done for you business, like, I think the thing that I would love to beg my clients to do a little bit more of is actually participate in the process just a little bit more. Like, show up to an occasional coaching call. It doesn't have to be like every single week, but show up once a month or so, because I'd love to be able to touch base with you and help keep you moving forward in your thought process and have an influence on it. But mine are so hands-off about stuff. They're like, just do it, and I'm so glad you're doing it. But I was like, but hey, if we could connect a little bit more, come back.
That's right.
Learn a little bit.
That's right.
So we got to figure out how to tip it a little bit back the other way too. I love that, Lisa. Last piece of advice you have for anyone who's thinking about starting a podcast but hasn't started theirs yet.
I truly believe that we all have wisdom inside of us. A lot of times we think my stories aren't impactful. My own husband says that. He'll be like, I'm just a boring dude. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, we always downplay our greatness. We downplay our experience. Many times people invest in you not because of the degrees and the certifications and the fancy letters or names that you have behind your name. We want to invest in people who have life skills and life experience and have been through something and can share how they got over a hump, share their success, share from where they came from. And we all have that story. We've all succeeded at something. We've all got our butt kicked with something. We've all made a bad decision and learned from it. And we just have so many stories and teachings and wisdom inside of us that anybody can start a podcast now about something. Whether it's that or whether it's genuinely something you're just really good at and really passionate about. You have something that you've mastered and that you're good at. So don't wait. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for all the stars to align. Don't wait until you hit this big milestone. Take people along in the process and start now, and you will get better. When I listen back to episode 1 to episode 170 or whatever I'm at now, you get better as you do it. But if you never start, you won't ever get better. So start now. Don't wait. Start now.
Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance and your generosity with the world. We appreciate you and your show.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been such a blast.
I hope you got a lot out of that. You can see her energy, her fire, her excitement about podcasting and about her business and about how she serves and how generous she is in the world. I mean, this just comes through both in the interview that she did just here right now, but also in everything she does on the show. So you're getting as a genuine peek at her. What I love most about doing this show on the Binge Factor is that I get to monetize in a different way than all of you out there. I don't have to worry about my show, making money because our business makes money, right? So we're making money in a completely different way. But what I get to do is I get to be curious about what's going on in the podcasting world, what great podcasters are doing out there. I get to stay in that, and that builds revenue after revenue of streams of knowledge that I can help my clients with. And that's one of the things. So I got a couple of things out of Lisa's show today. First off, I love that she can use her show to pick her brain, right? So when somebody asks me for help and I don't have the time, right, you can use your show to pick your brain, right? You can use it as a reference point, sending people to it, which is one of the suggestions I made to Lisa. Make a favorites feed. We learned that from Paul Higgins a few episodes ago. Make a favorites feed because that's an easy, quick way where you can send them to a bunch of them in a row and they don't have to search through and try to find either the number or the name of the episode because that gets difficult when you get over 100 episodes. So if you create a 25 episode short list and create a separate feed for that, then you can do this really easily and you can just refer them to that special feed and you can call it Lisa's favorites or your Tracy's favorites. And so you can do that and you have that as a spinoff in an easy way. Now you might not create a separate feed, but you might be able to create a quick little player or a quick single page on your website and be able to do that without having a spinoff feed. With, Lisa's one of my clients, as I mentioned earlier. So with Monetize, she has the ability to create that separate feed. But if you don't, just simply do it on your website. Point people to that page and you can have whatever your website.com is /favorites and just send them there every time or shorten it up and call it faves, right? We could still be, dating ourselves with being a little youthful about things, right? So that's one of the great takeaways that I got from Lisa today. The other thing is that I really loved when she said, don't forget about leaving the you in your podcast. Now, whether your show's named after you or not, and it's supposed to be about you, it doesn't matter. It is your personality and your energy out there. So don't forget about the things that excite you and interest you. Look, you guys wouldn't love this show as much as if I didn't find the podcasters as interesting as I do. So when I'm choosing who's going to be on my show, or I'm choosing what topics I'm going to talk about on Feed Your Brand, right? When I do those things, they have to be intimately interesting to me, or at the end of the day, it's just not going to work. I'm phoning it in. And we don't want that here. And Lisa definitely doesn't do that. And then the other thing is that I really love the structure she gave you. She gave us this structural idea for how she structures her show. For her, it's really seamless and it works really well. But at the end of the day, what she's doing is actually a really great sales model. So I want to reiterate it and highlight it here. So she said, you do the why first. You're telling them why this is important, why you're here, what's relevant to you. You have a nice short story about it. You get into the teaching, give them action, give them things they should do. They should try, right? Deal with an objection. Give them the but Tracy moment, the but Lisa moment, right? The thing that you're like, people are thinking in the back of your head. Now, when you overcome those objections, you're already moving them closer to wanting them to work with you. So if your model is to be using this sort of monetization model like Lisa is, of getting you warmed up and excited to work with her, then you're already on your way if you address those objections up front. And then the last thing she said was to give them motivation. And I like that model of giving them aspiration and motivation, inspiration of where to go. Because, at the end of the day, I feel that most of you out there, that's what you want from us. That's what you want us as podcasters to do. You want us to root for you. You want us to cheer for you. You want us to help you, right? And if we're here doing that, but we forget to tell you, you got this and you can do it, then we've not done our full job, right? We want to make sure that we don't just overwhelm you with ideas, information, actions. We give you a little bit of support and motivation and understanding that you can do this. So I'm so glad that Lisa came across my desk. And she came across my desk as a referral from another podcaster that I absolutely love. She came across my desk from Penny Zenker. Penny Zenker has the podcast Take Back Time, which I love the concept of the productivity boost you can do by taking time back for yourself. And I've always loved Penny's show. It's one of my favorites to go to again and again because she always delivers value. And Penny is one of my favorite people. And so when she referred me to someone, I never even checked at it or anything. I just immediately said, Lisa, come on my show. You must be a quality person. And that's really where we really want to rely on. When we can trust another podcaster, when we can trust a referral, we trust a client that they know us well. They know I know them well, so I know I can trust the data, the information, the ideas, the people that they're bringing forth. So I love that we can engender that kind of community here. So thank you, Penny, for referring Lisa. Thank you, Lisa Pezik Show, for being on my show today and sharing your great wisdom with our audience here. As always, I would love new podcasters, love to hear about you, hear what you're working on, hear how it's going for you, and hear where you're creating success. So if you'd like to be on The Binge Factor, don't forget to apply to the show at thebingefactor.com. Thanks, everyone. I'll be back next time with another podcaster to give us some exciting success tips.
You've been listening to the Binge Factor podcast. For more information on podcasting and videocasting success tips and tactics, please go to thebingefactor.com. And be sure to listen to our other show for podcasters called Feed Your Brand. If you'd like to be interviewed on this show, as well as featured in Tracy's column, please go to thebingefactor.com/guest and apply.